Hello, how you doing? It's Miguel again. Oh boy, let's see if I can. There we are. I guess that's a little better. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good myself. It's raining right now. There is moisture, precipitation coming down from the clouds. And ooh, I see a rainbow behind me. I love that arch of the rainbow. It really is quite beautiful. It's kind of interesting about rainbows. A lot of it depends on your perspective and the light, how the light reflects and diffracts through raindrops. And I don't know, they're just pretty amazing. And it's kind of interesting to think that everybody sees their own rainbow, right? Depending on the conditions. Um, or people don't see rainbows. It depends on your position. And interestingly enough, that can work from a psychological perspective. People see what they want to see from their own perspective. And I think about that a lot because one thing I say to myself all the time is that there are an infinite number of perspectives. And so all you have to do is choose what perspective you want to take. I mean, you have the power to choose what perspective you want to take, and you can choose the perspective that lets you feel the way you want to feel. It's kind of interesting. I've been sort of feeling low lately, and it's got me to think about the perspectives that I take, the ones that I take pretty automatically, and you know, you know, I have to remind myself every once in a while to let go of those perspectives that just aren't working for me. You know, quite often it just doesn't make sense to feel low. It just doesn't make sense. It's not it's not a good idea in the sense that it's not adaptive or in my long-term self-interest to feel low about one thing or another. And so, it's just, and really all it takes is a matter of perspective. It's just thinking different thoughts. Essentially it's a choice. First of all, it takes some creative effort to come up with the alternate choices because the alternate choices don't necessarily fall in your lap. You sort of have to think about them. And then those alternate choices have to become habitual, and they have to be so habitual that they override the original thought that, say, made you feel low. So it's definitely a process. But let me see if I can do it right now. How long should the process take? Well, what's the shortest amount of time a process could take? Well, I would guess the shortest amount of time is probably about a half a second. Why would it take any longer than that? Really, it comes down to the decision. How long does it take a person to make a decision about anything? I'd say probably about a half a second. So what would make what needs to happen before I make a choice to act in my own self-interest in terms of my thoughtful actions? That is my my thought acts. Because thinking is an act. It's kind of interesting. I often think to myself about how much control we have over our behavior, and it is exquisite. I mean, just think of concert pianists, classically trained concert pianists. They have exquisite control over the behavior of their fingers, their hands and their fingers as they glide over the keys. Well, I have a lot of control even over the thoughts that I think. In fact, I just thought about a pianist and how they glide their fingers over the keys. That's pretty specific. That's very detailed thought control right there. And all it took was a decision for me to think about classically trained pianists. So that's pretty remarkable. I mean, I can choose the thoughts that I think, and the effect of those thoughts. My emotional reaction. Has a lot to do with sort of the emotion in the thought, really, and that relates to the connotation of the words. What they mean, what the sentence means, as I string the words together in my mind. So Anyway, it's interesting to think that I could feel any way I want to feel. All I need to do is think the way I want to think, right? Think thoughts that are in my long-term self-interest. I don't know why the human brain is such that we sort of get caught up. This is really just the perennial problem, isn't it? It's just that these negative thoughts, these automatic negative thoughts, are just so sticky, and they're hard to get away from. And boy, I'll tell you, wouldn't it? It basically, people, um, we need distractions. Thank God life is filled with lots and lots of distractions, from food to technology to pain. Um, you name it, there are a ton of distractions, and that's good. And I know that there are a lot of people that even talk about our mind. Our mind is distractible. There are a lot of people who talk about the brain's monkey mind, which I think is probably this is something that it preserves our sanity. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I love that I have a monkey mind because it gets me off of the treadmill of my thoughts, which can drill down. They can be pretty persistent in a certain direction, and it's nice to be revectored to a different thought every once in a while, just because my eyes see different things as they saccade across my field of vision. And so anyway, and thankfully, look, when it comes to thinking about a single thought, it gets boring. I mean, there was a thought that I thought just a second ago. What was it about classically trained pianists moving their fingers across the keyboard? How many times am I going to think of that? For how long am I going to think about that? 10 minutes? No. That is, while it's an interesting thought and an interesting point, I moved on to the very next idea. As I moved on in the flow of my, flow of consciousness. So, yeah, the human mind is pretty distractible. I'm glad it is, because if it wasn't, man, I would spend my entire life just thinking about the very first thing that bothered me or frustrated me or gave me some sort of emotional pain. Thankfully, I can feel, I can feel other things, and it doesn't take very long for me to feel those things. Maybe about 5 seconds, and I'm already on to the next thought, which is both sad and great. It's really a wonderful thing. So really, somehow, I think it's about gaining some kind of thought control, over my own internal states by stringing the words and concepts and ideas together that work for my long-term best interest. Here's the thing. I can spend a lifetime being angry about one thing or another, but that doesn't really help change the world. A person can be angry for 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, an entire lifetime, and that thing might not ever change. That kind of reminds me of, what is that? Charles Dickens wrote a story, and there was that woman in the wedding dress, Great Expectations, right? Miss Havisham, right? So here she is in the white wedding dress, at a certain time, all the clocks are there, and she's just hanging out, just frozen in time. And you know what? That is it. That is Charles Dickens really put his finger on it. That is it. That's where we are all at. We're always there, especially when we're upset about something, where something seems unfair or unjust, and then we're just stuck. We just get stuck, and we don't move on. And here's the thing. Often, I would say 99% of the time, it doesn't change the world. The world just moves on, right? And so I guess that's part of sort of not wrapping yourself around the axle and then letting go and then moving on to the next thing, only to be upset by the next thing. Hopefully it's not a serious pattern and people can see it and change just the thoughts, whatever distorted thoughts are creating that problem in the first place. but it is something to consider. And, I just want to say how much I've been reading a book called Feeling Good by David Burns, and I'm really enjoying it. It really is an excellent book. And I got I bought the book Feeling Great by David Burns, and believe it or not, I only made it halfway through. I didn't even think. I mean, I thought it was the thoughts were quite excellent, but I think David Burns, at least in the second book, had a tendency to just drone on and on about things that are not relevant to the subject matter. Anyway, at least that was my impression when I was reading it. And I think what I'll do is I'll set up some time and probably end up finish reading that. First, I'm going to finish reading Feeling Good, and then I'm going to finish Feeling Great. The thing about the Feeling Great book is it's got a large number of pages. It's like 500, 600, 700 pages. So anyway, so yeah, I've been appreciating that. Oh, and I also ran across, I'm not sure if I even mentioned this, but H.P. Lovecraft. He's a writer very much like Edgar Allan Poe. And I've been reading some of his work lately, and I've been struck by some of his short stories. There was one short story I read recently called From Beyond. Just those two words. That was the title, From Beyond. And golly, I sure did enjoy it. It's basically the tale of a mad scientist who uses some machine to sort of make some vestigial sensory organs active again in our pituitary gland of our brain. This is all fabrication. It's all made up. But it was really a compelling story, and it was very short. It only takes about 10 minutes to read, and I so did enjoy it. I love the turns of phrase and the metaphor and the description. And basically, it was just it's almost these descriptions. They're just I really loved how he described the sort of the topsy-turvy, unstable world that he lived in, or his characters lived in. And I love his language. Pretty amazing stuff. H.P. Lovecraft, pretty great storyteller. I am reflecting on the idea that H.P. Lovecraft, I think he died penniless. He died in poverty, and I mean, what a shame. Definitely a writer before his time, I think. And it's regrettable that he didn't get the fame that he deserved throughout his life. During his life when he was alive. Anyway, I've been having some fun reading that. Here's the thing. It's not often that I read like horror literature or sci-fi. I don't typically gravitate towards those, but sometimes I do. Like I enjoy like Star Trek: The Next Generation and all kinds of sci-fi movies, of course. Like I love Aliens, and I enjoyed just like everybody else, Odyssey, 2001, etc. But I've never really thought that I would find myself reading horror literature or horror fiction fantasy. But I'll tell you, it sure is sort of a release. It sure is it's a recreation. It's sort of bubblegum for the mind, and I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy it, because it is purely recreational. I think to some extent, it does remind me of me reading Harry Potter, the entire series. Now, I must admit that I didn't read the entire series. I listened to a lot of it with audiobooks as I was driving, commuting to and from work, things like that. But I certainly did enjoy the story, and I enjoyed visualizing it. Basically, it's a huge story, so detailed. And I also enjoyed watching the movies. And I think I've completed all the movies. I think I might have completed all the movies from beginning to end, so that was pretty interesting. Now, I guess one of the questions I have to ask myself is, am I going to go ahead and read there's another series of books Grindelwald. Yeah, the Grindelwald series. And I'm not sure if I want to do that. I think there were, I don't know how many books were written about that series, about that new series. But I did see one of the movies, and truthfully, it wasn't that compelling to me. I think part of the reason why the movie wasn't compelling for me is that I hadn't read the book. And so I didn't quite know what was going on, and there was a lot of. The story was like making no sense to me. And I'm sure the story would make sense to people who've actually read the Grindelwald series of books, but because I hadn't read it, I'm sure the director left a lot of breadcrumbs for me to follow. And here's the thing: I can get a lot of subtle points when I watch a movie, but I can't get them all. And quite often, I've got material just going over my head. I'm not grasping it. And I've been through many movies where at the end I need to ask the person who I went to go see the movie with how they interpreted one thing happening or another, what their perspective was, or how they understood the story, because there are parts of the story that I just do not grasp. And hey, in a 2-hour film, it is not unexpected that I don't understand that I don't understand various aspects of the movie. So a lot of these stories are very complex. Characters are complex with complex motivations, and anyway, I do grasp around 80-90% of movies, but some movies are a little bit less graspable than others, right? Some movies are a little more esoteric. So, speaking of movies, I've been interested in watching Guardians of the Galaxy, and I did invite my daughter to watch it in a watch party, so we'll see what happens. Maybe she'll be up to it. And part of the reason I'm interested in this Guardians of the Galaxy show is because last time I went to Universal Studios, no, was it Universal Studios or was it Disneyland? You know what? I think it was Disneyland. I think, is it true that Disney owns Marvel Comics? And I think Guardians of the Galaxy is a Marvel. I may be totally off base. That's one thing about me, is that I am not one. I do not hold all the knowledge in the universe. My grasp of the facts of the universe is limited, and so I do my best. But I think that Guardians of the Galaxy might be a Disney piece of intellectual property, and so that's why it's coming together. That I saw the Guardians of the I think there's a Guardians of the Galaxy ride in Disneyland, California, or Disney, California, and that's pretty cool. Boy, I tell you, I really cannot wait until the amusement parks open again. I've got a real strong hankering to visit amusement parks now. I don't care what it is. Actually, you know what I do? I want to go visit Disneyland again, and I also want to go visit. See, it's not Hickory Farms. It's the one that sells the Smucker's jelly, or it's the one with all the chicken restaurant. It's the one that has like the Miner 49er ride. I forget what it has. These days they've got a lot of roller coasters at that amusement park. What is it called? It's like, I don't know. Oh, there's also, I want to go to Six Flags America, Great America, up in San Francisco, or actually it's not San Francisco, it's like Silicon Valley. So I'm really excited about going. I think I want to take a trip up there and going to check it out. So that'll be fun. That's when everything starts opening up. Maybe I'll go see Great America in Silicon Valley this coming summer. This coming fall, maybe. That sounds like fun. I think that sounds like pretty cool stuff. And I don't know. I would love to go back to Universal Studios Los Angeles or Hollywood, and I don't know. There are a lot of amusement parks I haven't been to. Like, I haven't been to SeaWorld in a long, long time. I don't even know if it's open anymore. Um, and I have been to Legoland. That might be an interesting place to visit again. And I don't know. Are there very many other theme parks? I'm not sure. I don't know. Anyway, there are a number of theme parks here in California, and I think I want to visit them. I'll even visit Magic Mountain again. I don't know. I guess I just want to get thrown around by a roller coaster. That could be fun, to be thrown around by a roller coaster. And anyway, it shakes you up a little bit. Maybe that's what I need. Sometimes you just need to be shooken up a little bit. There's something. Yeah, I don't know what it is about me and amusement parks. You know what? Here's the thing. When I was a kid, I went to amusement parks and I really loved them. That was just the thing. It was just all about. I love that stuff. When I was growing up as a kid, and so I have a lot of memories about it. And for me, that was just a lot of fun. And I loved going to the beach when I was a kid, and maybe going to swimming pools and hotels. But I think primarily it was, for me, I really enjoyed the amusement parks, and I have a lot of good memories about amusement parks. And now, here's the thing about amusement parks. It's probably the good thing and it's probably the bad thing, but you end up doing a lot of walking there. And it's great from a burning calories perspective, but if you're not like fully mobile, and able to walk, basically, 6, 7, 8, 9 miles. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on your style of going on rides. I've been with people whose style of going to amusement parks is just going on every single ride all the time for 9 hours or whatever it is. And then I've gone to amusement parks with people who are all about like going shopping or playing video games or hanging out and eating, and they're just not doing a lot of rides. So it's kind of interesting. What is my style? I think I'm more of a go on a lot of rides style, but I don't necessarily have to do that. Quite often, I actually enjoy going to a lot of the entertainment that's going on, like the bands that are playing or the dancers who are dancing. That's pretty exciting to me. I like the entertainment. I like the actors and actresses, some of the stunt people, some of the stuntmen. The stunt people who do the stunts, and some like old west gunfights and stuff like that. But different strokes for different folks, and I guess I have different preferences. I really am looking forward to society opening up after coronavirus. It has been a long year, and I don't see things really opening up until April, May time frame. And so hopefully by the fall, June, July, August, things will start getting back to normal, and there'll be a whole lot less illness and death and people suffering. I hate to be around. I hate the fact that people are suffering all over the world, and that suffering for a lot of people is just. I'm looking forward to, at least in the United States, for that suffering to start diminishing in the latter part of the year. But I know that there are places in the world where that suffering will continue, and so that is very regrettable. I guess I'm glad to live in a place that reasonably has this thing under some finite expectation of being done. Anyway, I hope everybody is doing well, and I guess I'll talk to you later, right? And don't be a stranger. And one of these days, I'm going to look at my videos and I'll critique myself, and maybe I'll do a better job of speaking into the camera. And maybe doing a better job of doing all that and talking like I should be. I think I really need a lot of help, And I guess it's just going to take time and study.